Happy Monday to everybody. Thanks for clicking on to today's European Outlook. It is the 3rd of March, and it was actually one of the coldest mornings for the Benelux region, really all winter. And it's now a meteorological spring, which is quite interesting. But we've had temperatures down close to -6 right along the Dutch coast. But the far inland areas of Belgium, for example, dropping towards the -10 Celsius range this morning. And we also seen a notably cold night in southern UK as well. This was the temperatures across the British Isles this morning. Very mild across the north, if you notice here. Even into northern England, we had the 6s and 7s. But then once you got further south, we've seen 3 straight mornings below -5 in the Benson, Oxfordshire region, a known cold spot. But this has been a notably chilly start to the month of March for south central England and Oxfordshire to be exact. But it's all thanks to breeze and cloud cover further north. We've got the centre of the high closer to southern England, and therefore England and Wales has seen some fairly chilly starts to the day, but nothing on par with that further north across the British Isles. This is the latest satellite imagery here, and you can see that we've got a fairly decent area of high pressure at the moment. If I can get the right chart, it always helps. Bear with a second here. So yeah, we've got some fairly clear skies across the southern half of the UK, but it's cloudier the further north you go. Much of Ireland and Northern Ireland is under cloud cover as well. But we've got this stretched out area of high pressure from the central North Atlantic all the way across much of Europe at the moment, and we've got the fairly mild west-southwesterly airflow around the top of this area of high pressure. But a lot of attention is being made, and rightly so, to what's going on up in the stratosphere. This is the Mandylion Oscillation. We're going to see a quick rotation through phases 2 and 3, so it's rotating back into the Indian Ocean and possibly eventually going to try and start to go back towards the colder phases of 7 and 8. Now, this coinciding with what's going on up in the stratosphere is quite important. Now, you could say to yourself, well, we're well into March now. This isn't going to really have any big deal in terms of wintry conditions or anything, but this could be one of the earliest final stratospheric warmings to take place since, I believe, 2016, where you can see here that this is the mean zonal winds projected by the ECMWF, a very sharp deceleration in the mean zonal wind, down and reversing those winds rather than being from west to east, they go from east to west. And you notice here that the ensemble mean remains at below the zero line, which is where you've got the winds reversed up in the stratosphere. And the consequence potentially of this is increased blocking up into the high latitudes, up over Greenland potentially as well, and return to a much more blocked up weather pattern. We'll get a south displaced jet. We'll have more extremes in terms of unusual warmth and unusual cold within the middle latitude pattern. And we could see, basically hello spring and then goodbye spring, given what we're seeing with these models here. Again, something that we're going to continue to keep a close eye on going forward. This is the ECM weeklies in terms of the temperature anomalies of 10 millibars. And you can see here the strong warming week 1 into week 2. You can see the warming showing up right across the top of the Arctic region here. And it looks as if this is going to maintain itself through the rest of March, and pretty much there won't be a recovery back to westerly winds up in the 10 millibar level. Now, something I've been paying close attention to, and what's interesting is this is the 50 millibar level, or the lower portion of the stratosphere, and not at the current period. And you can see the warming taking place North Pacific across the top of North America. We've got this low and cold pool centered over Eastern Europe and Western Asia here. Now, this type of setup has been quite dominant through much of the last 4, 5, 6 weeks. And what this represents to me is blocking and cold air getting driven across the top of the pole into North America, but the lower pressure to the north of the UK has meant that we've had less conducive environment. from an atmospheric point of view for cold into Europe and into western areas of Europe in particular, when you've got this orientation of the temperature profile here. So the coldest temperatures towards northern Europe, the warmest temperatures at 10 millibars across the top of the North American side of the pole. This setup has been allowing a channel to be created for North American cold, not so much across western areas of Europe. But this is the initial, this is 6 days or 7 days from now, and you can see the very strong warming showing up now across East Asia, over the top, and more towards the North Pole itself. Looking out 10 days from now, and the 50 millibar level looks like this here. So this isn't a guarantee that we're going to see a notable cold second half to March, but it certainly does favour an interesting setup and something worth paying attention to throughout the month of March itself. Now, this is another interesting one. I showed you this in recent videos. This is the GFS overview. So the precip cloud temperature and pressure at the moment. There's that stretched out south displaced area of high pressure. Underneath that high, we've got mild days and cold nights as a consequence. We've got the air mixed further north along the northern flank, and therefore we've seen much less in the way of temperature fluctuation diurnally. We've not seen the big swing between cold mornings and mild afternoons in the same way as places closer to the centre of the high, where winds are lighter and skies are clearer. But you can see here, as we play through this loop here, off the GFS, we've got this frontal system that skirts the northern half of possibly Ireland, Northern Ireland and Scotland through the course of later tomorrow and into Wednesday. Again, you can see the squeeze in the isobars representing strong winds coming in off the Atlantic, fairly milder, getting driven across the top of that high as well. But it's as we move towards the middle and second half of the week, we start to just build the pressure subtly over the near continent. That then creates a wall, a barrier for areas of low pressure moving in off the Atlantic. And what happens is we get this split going on within the upper level winds here. We start to see an area of low pressure. Rather than coming in across the top of the UK and Ireland, it gets diverted south. It then winds up into a larger area of low pressure, going to bring some fairly unsettled conditions across Iberia, for example. But also notice that the area of low pressure getting pushed up towards the Norwegian Sea, essentially. But it's what is taking place that is interesting. Notice here that we start to see the high then build to the north of the UK and Ireland here. And by the time we reach late this week, through the weekend and in early next week, we've got an area of high pressure rather than low pressure over Iceland. And it's essentially where the airflow is going to then move is going to be quite important. So this is all related to what's going on within the tropospheric polar vortex, with the area of high pressure then building within the atmosphere. That creates frictional effects within the stratosphere above it. But if you look at the 850 temperatures here, go back to the here and now, play through this loop, we've got this westerly flow that is mild at the moment, continue to play through, then that pressure builds to the east of the UK and Ireland, it stops that eastward progression, it splits the airstream, one piece going north, one piece going south, and then it's really what is happening further north that is important. You can see here as we play through this loop, we're starting to see that the pressure starting to drag some of this colder air way up into the high latitudes southwards, and then possibly around the eastern and southern flank of that area of high pressure and towards the UK and Ireland. This is a similar setup, by the way, to what we've seen back through the period, what would that be, the 5th through the 15th of February, when we had a lot of high pressure to the north. The question mark is going to be how much cold air we get into the continent. That is going to be important to take into consideration. Looking at the ECMWF then, and we'll round up there, you can see here, again, similar situation to the GFS. We see this wall being created, then that split, and then it's essentially what happens to that cold air lurking both to the west and to the north as that high then starts to replace the low near Iceland and come south. The ECMWF is now starting to see that colder air getting driven into the UK and Ireland pattern. So very mild through much of this week, especially during the afternoon, not so much in the mornings, especially across the south of the UK. But it is a case of one step forward, two or three back. That is looking reasonably likely based on what is going on stratosphere and also within the troposphere. Short, sweet video today. I hope you're enjoying the content here in the channel. Be sure to check out yesterday's live stream if you haven't already done so if you're interested. And I'll see you next time with more. Bye for now.